Hey guys, welcome back. We're gonna continue working on rebuilding the Chevy 153 Mercruiser 120 engine. So today we're gonna be putting in pistons, and we're gonna do the piston rings, and we'll put the retainers on the connecting rod caps and the bearings. So we'll take a look at that. But I wanted to show you the pistons because I think they're pretty interesting. Okay, so the kit that I got came with brand new pistons. There were standard size 235 NP standard size pistons, which are actually the same size as a small block Chevy, which would be, what would that be, like a 350 or something like that? I'm not sure on Chevy engines, but they always call them small block Chevys. So the kit that I bought came with new pistons and new rods that go across. This is an old one, but this is a piston I actually messed up, and I'm going to tell you how I did it. So the reason why I messed up this piston, this new piston I got, is because of this. If you see here, this is the old one, and the connecting rod actually holds the pin in place. So we're looking at it like this. So if this is the connecting rod and this goes inside the piston goes like this, and this actually floats back and forth like this. So the piston, it's this rod, connecting rod that, I don't know, what do you call that, a pin or something? Whatever this pin is, it's actually thinner than the width of this. So if you look here, see it's thinner than it. So you have a little bit of play when you go to put this in. So what do you have to do to put it in? So I'm going to show you real quick in the video on how I did it and how to put it together. But the main reason why I'm glad they gave me pistons in the kit is because this is what happens when you try to take your connecting rods off without a proper tool to hold it. I actually went over to a friend's house and we used a press, and we pressed down through and got this rod, got the pin out of some of the pistons, but some of them didn't, and some of them actually broke in half just like this. So you could see what happens whenever you push that out. Which is, I found that to be weird because I'm used to ones with like wrist pins on the ends. So you slide it in, you'd slide it into your piston, and you'd have your wrist pins that actually hold it in place. Where this is actually, it's a press fit into the connecting rod itself. Okay, so these are the pistons. So I messed one up whenever I was doing it. I'll show you the tool that I made. I'll have to go dig it out. Let me come right back. Okay, so this is the little tool that I made. What it is that your piston sits here just like this, okay? And you have this little bar here that stops the pin when you slide it in, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to freeze this pin. It's going to put it in the freezer just for a little bit, then heat up the end of the connecting rod. So what you have, I'll show you in the video whenever I actually do it, because this one's actually bent because I screwed it up putting it in. So what you do is you take it, and this sits here. Okay, so you take and you slide this in like this. I have this stopper to stop it when it comes through the piston. Since this piston's bent, I can't show it to you easily. But it would go, you put this in here, and I kind of put it in, straighten it up, kind of line it up with these little marks I made. And then this would be frozen, this pin. Heat up the end of the connecting rod, put the connecting rod in, slide this in real fast. And all you have is a split second, and it's got to be bedded in there perfectly straight. Well, not perfectly straight, but I had it so this is set. So when you slide this in, I could put the connecting rod all the way to the right here, and it would be centered in the pin, into this pin here. I know this is very complicated, but I'll show you in the video real quick or whatever. But this is basically just a little tool to stop it. Whenever it slides in, it runs in right into here while I hold the connecting rod. So it's just a simple little thing, just pieces of wood with a rod here that was carriage bolt that was just adjustable. So you put your piston in like this, freeze this, heat it up, hold this here, slide that in real quick, and hold it for a second, and boom, it's in there. So here's a video. I'll show you me actually doing it. So here we are, I got MAP gas heating up the end of the connecting rod. So I'm just heating it up a little bit, just kind of getting it real nice and hot at the end. So when we slide that pin in, it goes in real nice and easy. Now the connecting rod is hot. I put it to the right of the piston, and then I have the pin which has been frozen for a little while. So I get that started, and then you got to slide it in real quick and then hold it to the right. Just give it a second and it should be set. Thank you to my assistant for the help. And there it is, all done.
All done. Stop the video.
So we got all of our pistons together with our pins pressed in, or heat shrunk in, or whatever. It's pretty neat how it's a press fit to hold the pin in, and then press fit to hold the pin in, but there's nothing to hold it on the ends on these pistons. So it's pretty neat how it does that, and it keeps it in place. So also, I don't know if I pointed out before, but we got the front of the arm here, and this is number 2 piston, and then we have the F right here on the piston that goes towards the front. And also this little piece here points towards the front of the engine as well. So make sure you put your rods on in the right way. I marked them with the F, or the marked them, so I knew which side was which whenever I took them out of the engine. So we have our piston rings. We got 1, 2, and then our oil rings here. So we're gonna do a test fit to check the gap for the number 1 piston ring. Okay, look at it, and you could see it. Probably won't be able to see it because it's too dark in here, but it actually says top on the top of it, so make sure you always put your piston rings up on the top. So let's go check it out and put it on the engine and see how it, check the gap. Just like everything, I always just put some oil on the inside so I keep it, so every time, even though I oiled them down whenever I honed them and everything, I just put a little extra on there. It doesn't hurt anything. So we take our piston ring. This is how you check the gap. So again, there's the top right there. It says top. Hold it real close. There you go. Now you can see it. See the top? It says that there. You take that, you kind of press it into your cylinder here. Get started in there. Then you take your piston, has no piston rings or anything on it, and you push it down in to square it up. Okay? So now our piston ring is nice and straight, going the whole way around, evenly around inside the piston. Then there's our gap. So let me get the feeler gauges. According to our handy dandy book, pretty sure it said up to piston ring service. Let me go look in the book real fast here. Piston ring groove, there's the gap right here, and it says the piston ring compression, the first one, the gap. Production, that's whenever they actually make the engine, and service is what we're working on here. So we got a gap of 10 to 30 thousandths of an inch. And there's also the metric there. So we'll check out the top one and we'll see how it fits in there, between 10 and 30 thousandths. So I'll go, how about we go 15, which is actually a pretty big variation in the gap, if you think about it. Okay, there's 15 thousandths here. Yep, 15 fits in there. Let's go to 20. 20 fits in there too. There, 24 does not fit in there. Go to 22. There you go. 22. 23 does not. So 22, I guess we'll say it's a 22 gap in there, which is within spec of what we need, which is still kind of high, maybe because it's a little bit worn in here, but it'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. I think it will be okay with where we're at, especially if we're at 20 thousandths with fresh rings. We should be good. Then all you do is you take the piston ring back out and we'll install it on the piston. We'll figure while we're here, let's do the ring number 2. So again, there's the top. We'll take it. Because now I'm interested to see if that one's at 22. Let's see what this one's like. Get it started in there. Push the piston down into there. Which I have a feeling it's probably the same at 22, I bet. They don't really put much variation, at least in my experience. In the times I've built engines over and over again, it doesn't seem like most of the time. There you go, there's 22. And let's see, 23. Well, 23 kind of fits in there too, so my experience is that they always give you extra, and it's well within there. See, 24 won't go in. So this one's about 23. I probably went down a little bit further in, but still, that's plenty. We still got up to, like it said, 30 thousandths in the book, so we're good. We got plenty in there. So number 1 and number 2 piston ring is good. We'll take that out. We'll go over and we'll install these into the piston. Okay, so we got our piston here. We're gonna do, here's our number 1 and number 2 that we just checked out. Let's open this up, the oil one, the oil ring. Alright, so there's our things there. Those are the ones that hold the oil ring. And here is the oil ring. The oil kind of holds it. Makes the kind of holds the oil within the groove, I guess, to help it go around. So what I normally do is I take this and I put the screen part in first, put it into the bottom groove, and you take one of these rings that go in between at the top and the bottom of your oil retainer. It kind of holds it in place in there. Not sure if these have a top on them. No, they don't say top either. They don't have a top on them either. So, okay, so what I do is you put it on the bottom and you kind of get it started. And you kind of work your way around. It gets kind of tricky because it wants to go on top. But you can put it down onto the bottom, underneath the ring. There you go. You just work your way around. Go. So see that one there is now down into the bottom of it. So then the next one. Yeah, because these don't have a top and a bottom, so I guess they just go in. They don't have a top on them, so they go in any which way. So again, you get it started into the groove. You kind of slowly work your way around. It'll kind of pop itself into there, just like that. And there you go. So the oil ring's in. And the next thing is your number 2. And again, I'm working from the bottom up, because so you're not putting your ring over top of the top ring and you're kind of overlapping. So here we are. We'll get make sure it says the top. And I like to use one of these tools. They're ring pliers. So it goes in there and it'll open up your rings like that. Just take them There you go. Now that ring's in there. So number 2 is in. So then do the number 1. Make sure it's all wiped off. Number 1, go at the top. Make sure it's at the top. Do the same thing. Use the pliers. Open it up. And there you go. Now your piston rings are all installed. Your number 1, number 2, make sure that top is pointing to the top, and your oil rings in there. So they do give you some instructions in your box on where to set your rings, where to put your gaps at, because you have your gaps. So you usually like 180 degrees apart, the 2 gaps in your piston rings and things like that. Like you don't want them to be right on top of each other, because then that's an air gap and things like that. So all right, so that's one piston done. So I'm going to go and get the other ones done. All right, so I put piston 1 in already. And so I'm going to do piston 4. I did 1, and I'm going to do 4 because now the crank is in the downward position. I'll show you when we go over there. But when I flip the engine over. So we got our rings in there. We got everything like we went over. And you can see I have an F and a 4. So I know this connecting rod is number 4, and that's the forward position. And again, the F is here. I think we already went over this before. And also there's this notch too that goes towards the front. So there's a lot of things to tell you that you're going in the right direction. So what I did was I cleaned the bearing race areas for the caps. Give them another quick clean. So then we got our bearings here, and we have our little notch here, goes into the notch. So line that up. There we go. Little tap to make sure it kind of swings back and forth, that it's in there the whole way. So that's in there good. We'll go to our next bearing. Out. Also, these are standard size bearings for the crank, because these are the exact same size that I had in there before that came out of it. So I'm not going to do any plasti gauge or anything like that on these. I think they should be okay. So they really didn't have too much wear on them whenever I took them out. And the main crank bearings actually had a negative 0.1, like a positive 0.1 on it. So anyway, so the crank bearings are now in. They're good. So next thing we're going to do is we'll put some oil onto start oiling everything up. Because we don't want anything to go into the engine dry. So I'm going to do the rods there, get down into here. And this is just regular oil, car oil, fresh, clean, fresh oil. Nothing fancy. I think this actually might be 10W40, but again, it doesn't really matter. So I'm moving the piston back and forth and wiggling it so it gets down in there, so we have some oil. Then we'll put some oil into the, actually here, yeah, we'll put oil in here. That's fine. We'll do this next. Get oil all inside on the rings, on the outside, inside the groove as well. Inside the oil thing. Just make everything so nothing goes in dry. Put a little bit there. Spread it around. Doesn't hurt to have more oil on there, especially if you take a while to put the engine together, because then there's just sits with oil in there and it doesn't hurt nothing. Gets everything nice and lubed up in there. Okay, I think we got oil all inside everything. So the next thing we're going to do is our piston ring compressor. It's the same one that I used on my Land Rover, nothing different. If you're new to the channel, that's I redid my Land Rover with the same pieces and parts. You have to look back on that. See if your piston rings are in a good location. Then you put your piston ring compressor on. And if you look down on the bottom of it, there's little bumps right here to help it from not going down into the crank. So we're going to put those towards the bottom. Hold that with your thumb like this. And it comes with a little cranky handle. Twist it until the rings are all in there. And also don't forget, don't be shy with oil inside of your piston ring compressor tool as well. I'm going to loosen it up. I didn't have this straight. There you go. Again, you're not, like you just saw, I just redid it. I'm just going to adjust it just so it's all straight. It doesn't hurt nothing, but it's good to have everything straight when you go to do it. And also, you don't need to have it all the way down your piston. Have it up a little bit. So it's actually just going around the rings. And crank it until it's tight and snug. And you don't have to worry about the oil because the oil is going to let it slide right out of there. Okay, wipe the oil off my hands. And I got these still left over from the last build. There's little rubber things to help these so they don't scratch your crank when you put it in. You slide it into the block. Then we'll take some of the Ultra Slick goo, your assembly lube. So you always have that. Coat your bearings with that. Which some people use regular oil, but I feel that this is better because then it sticks around, it doesn't go anywhere. So when you go to start it up, you have less chance of it starting up dry or anything. And I'm sure everyone else, I always use a lot more than probably most people do. Probably because I'm more paranoid on it. Okay, so this is ready to go. So let's flip you around here to take a look at the engine. All right, so here we are at the engine. Number 1's over here. This is number 4. Take a little bit of oil, squirt it around the edge. Use your finger to move it around so it gets a nice coating in there. Again, this just helps everything by having oil inside there. And you take your piston right here, and you again got your front F here, and your notches are pointing towards the front over this way. Take this, slide it down in. Okay, then it sits there like that. You can see, if you could see the piston. See there, it's still sitting in the holder. It's not, it needs to be knocked down in. Alright, so take yourself a hammer on the wood side. There it is. It pops out of the thing. We'll hit it down in. You really don't need to use the hammer to hammer the piston down in. You could basically just push it in with your hand and then guide it down to the crank. But I guess I was zealous with the hammer. Alright, so you got it down to the crank. Watch, I'll turn it over. Here we are underneath. You can see there. So here's our crank. There's the 2 little rubber caps. Take those off now, and you can see now we're lined up right where we need to be with everything. Then put a little dab on there. A little dab will do ya. And then I also marked these with a paint mark and a paint mark on this side so that I knew I put it together at the same way I took it apart. Push that in. Put the nuts on. Okay, take that. I'm just going to hand tighten it right now. We'll torque them all later. There you go. So there's one piston in. All right, so that's one. That's the last one there. So she's in there. So I'm gonna flip the cam around and I'll do the next two. You'll see that watch the pistons come up. See them? There they are. Okay, so now the two center crank ones are down towards the bottom, so then I could just throw those ones in next. Alrighty, I'll be back. Alright, so we got all of our pistons in, and now we got our connecting rods connected. So now we're going to torque down the end caps. So these are actually 1132 diameter bolts, which I thought they were 3/8, but in our handy dandy book it said there's two kinds, 3/8 or 11/32. So I measured the stud, it was 11/32. So I'm going to torque it to that spec for each one. According to our handy dandy book, our Mercruiser number 10 book. And those ones. Okay, and we got to rotate the engine around. I take one tool out and I cover up another tool. So rotate that around. Oh yeah, that's pretty smooth. Like there is no jerking or nothing with any of that when it's spinning around. So that's nice. Well, now we got the pistons in there. This is something that's not in the repair manual or anything like that, but this is the timing. This is supposed to be the timing area to show you where the marks are, but you can see there's actually nothing on there. It's just little notches on there. So, taking a little note from Land Rover, I found my top dead center of number 1. So you can see we're at 0 right now. And that's when I turned it and I zeroed it out so I could check to make sure. So my top dead center. Then I had to bolt on. I just put 2 bolts in to hold the timing cover on. Then I had to put the pulley on the inside, tap it on a little bit because it's actually a press fit. It's not bolted on. So then these, you have 3 bolts that hold this cover on. But one bolt here, this one, is actually smaller than these other 2. So you put this pulley on in the right direction so you know there's no other way this is going to be able to go on because this has a smaller hole and these has 2 bigger holes. So that lines up to here. This is your timing mark that's actually cut onto the pulley. Then I took a straight edge and came across, and then that notch right here that I painted come across, that's actually 0. So that's top dead center. 0 to there to there. There, with our pulleys all lined up and our timing cover, our piston now on top dead center, on number 1 in the firing. So we're good. So now I got this marked, so now I know where 0 is, and I'm pretty sure from what I've seen on the internet is that each notch is now 2 degrees as you go across here. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but I think it's, you know, before top dead center, after top dead center. I can't remember which way it spins, but I guess it should be spinning this way. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll set the timing as is and how it goes. But I just wanted to show you that I needed to go back and find out where it actually is 0 degrees on our timing cover. So I'm going to take the timing cover off and everything. It all still needs to be cleaned up. All right, back to work. So we're going to be putting our bottom pulley on the engine. So right now it has a mark. It has top dead center on it, TDC, top dead center. So what we want to do is find 180 degrees from this side. So we can put a little mark on here so we know where bottom TDC is. Which this is for like valve setting and everything, but we really shouldn't have to. But I thought I'd put a reference mark on here just so I know in the future where I'm at. And if I'm on the other side or anything like that. So this is what I did. Getting really elementary school here now. So we got our tape measure, but we grabbed a ruler and I just went across from it and got it was 6 inches and 3/4 of an inch. 6 3/4 of an inch, okay? Took a handy dandy compass, just like you buy anywhere. You can buy them pretty cheap at here in America. We have a thing called a dollar store or a Dollar General. So or a dollar store, and you could just pick this up literally for $1. So what I did is I put it on here, measured 3 3/8, which would be half of 3 3/4. Then I just kind of poked it on there, drew a mark over here, went around, drew a mark over here. So then we have our 2 radiuses. If you can see that on the camera, you kind of can. So I got the 2 radiuses. Then I used my ruler and just drew a straight line going across. So now we have TDC or TDC, whatever way you want to look at it. So I took this, then I laid this centered on here onto our radius and our radius. We went like this and put our little mark right here. Then we centered it up on the radius going around and the radius going around, and it looks like it's almost dead center of this hole right here. So then now we have this here mark here, and all I did was take our handy dandy paint pen and put a mark on this side, and now we are 180 degrees away from that mark. Put that mark on there. So what I did is this one already has a cut in it, and I just took like a Dremel and just made a little mark on there to make a little cut on there so that I could see where it's at. But again, not required, not needed, but this is just something so I know whenever I'm working on things, I like to know where I'm at in opposite directions. If I ever need to set the valves again or check them or anything, I know where I'll be able to find. For the other cylinder, like 1 and 4, you could find this easily with TDC, but 2 and 3, you'll need a BTC to find their top dead center. So there you go. So that's on. So we're going to put this on the engine next. Hey guys, okay, it's the end of this video. I hope you found it informative about the pistons and everything. It's kind of crazy how it works and everything, but thank you for liking and subscribing and being awesome, because you are awesome. So I'll see you again in the next one. The next video will be about putting the head on, and we'll do up the valve train. So thank you very much. See you later. Thank you, and have a good one.